Now, starting off, the Arabic alphabet contains 28 different letters. And as you see in this picture, every letter in the Arabic language, in the Arabic alphabet, might contain a counterpart in another language. But comparing it to the English language, there are almost 20 letters that can be written with straight equivalent letters, straight equivalently pronounced letters in English, but there are many others that cannot be expressed in the English language. And in this session, I'll show you how to write many of these letters, how the differences of the ways to write such letters, and the how unique each letter is from the other. Now, starting off, the Arabic language is luckily a phonetic language, which means that every letter is basically pronounced the way it's written. And the good thing about this is comparing it to like the English language. The English language might have silent letters and letters that are not properly, like they're not spelled the same way they're written, like sh are spelled ish, but in the Arabic language, every letter is just individually pronounced and individually given the way of pronunciation with other letters in certain words. And in this section, we can see many of the letters that do not have any equivalent forms in the English language. Now, these letters are not normally they're hard to get out, and they're hard to like be expressed by people who are not natively Arab and who are not natively been raised to pronounce these letters. But over practice, I've seen a lot of people who learned Arabic and they've not easily, but like they've managed to get their way through into pronouncing these letters. And such letters are these ones, the ones that are colored in purple. And let's say this letter is pronounced ha, this letter is pronounced kha, and you can't find similarly pronounced letters in most languages, basically, which makes the Arabic language unique, and which gives it its importance in the language industry. Now, moving on to the way of writing these letters and how every letter has its own way of writing it, and even every letter has different forms of writing when you implement that fact. Now, starting off, there are 4 forms of writing these alphabetical letters. Now, the first one is the letter being isolated and the letters being just on its own. And in this case, we can see how the first letter of the alphabet, which is it's called alif, but we pronounce it as a or a in the English language. And in this letter, we can see that its isolated form is just a stick by itself. Now, some letters in the Arabic language have special cases, and they don't have the 4 different forms of the way they are written. So, for example, the first example we use, the letter a, alif, only has the isolated and the final form. It doesn't have the initial and the medial. The way it's written as an initial letter is the same as the isolated form, and the way it's written as the medial form as the medial letter is just its final form. And I'll show you more about this when we move on in this session. Now, the other case is the letter being an initial letter, and here, if you can't notice, the Arabic language is a language that's written from the right to the left, which is unlike many other languages. And we can see here that the initial character is placed on the right and it's connected to the left. And the way the letters are connected indicates that the Arabic language is a cursive language, and each letter most of the times is connected to the letter in front of it and behind it. And in this case, as an initial character, the letter doesn't have anything behind it, so it's only connected to the letter in front of it. And in this case, we can see how this letter, which is called noon, or is equivalent to the letter N in English, is only connected to the letter after it to the left. And the way it's written, we can go back in the slides, we can see it's the same as this letter. It's as an isolated form, the first format that we talked about. As an isolated form, it talks about it's written as a semicircle with a dot on top. But then when we move on, we can see how it's just a backwards L with a dot on top. Now the third format that our letter can be written as is the medial form, and with it being in the middle of the sentence, in the middle of a word, and in this case it's connected to the letter behind it and the letter in front of it. And we can see here it's the same letter that we used in the previous example. It's the letter N or noon. It's connected to this side and this side, unlike the previous example, it was connected only to the left side. Now many letters, not many, but like few letters in the language, like the letter alif or a, do not have a medial form. But what they have is a final form, which is indicated here. All letters in the English language have a isolated and final form, but only few don't have an initial and the medial form. Now, as a final form here, it's showing the same letter that we started with, the letter alif or a, and it's showing it as how it's connected to the word behind it, but it doesn't connect to anything afterwards. And regardless if it's here, yes, it's showing it as a final letter, but even if there's a letter after it, it wouldn't be connected to it, but it would still be considered one word, because before we said that the language is a cursive language, but not necessarily when those exceptional letters are used, because these have special cases. Now I've written a couple of examples that we can go over, and in this case we can see the word mama or mom, that it starts with the letter meme, and as an initial character, unlike its isolated form, which is shown here with the stick going downwards, here it's just a circle that's connected to the letter after it, which is the letter a. Now here we can see the medial form of the letter alif or a, as I said before, but we can see how it's written as the final. It's like the exact same way of writing as if it was written as a last character or in the final form. This other example is the word ana, which is me, and it starts with the letter alif as an isolated form, but it's on the first letter as well, and it's in the initial position as well. And we can see here the letter noon or n, and we've discussed this before. And then we can see both forms of, like all forms even, of the letter a shown here in this word, as it being an isolated, initial, final, and we can say medial because it's connected. But regardless if it's a medial or a final, there's nothing will be connected to it here. Now these two words, we can see I picked these two words because I wanted to show you another letter that does not, that is written completely differently when it's placed in a different position in the word. Now in this case, this word is kursi, and it means chair, but we don't worry about that right now. But we can see here the letter is written like this, which is very similar to its isolated form. But in this case, we can see how when the letter is written as a medial or a initial in the initial position, the whole shape of the letter is changed. Now finally, I just wanted to show how unique the Arabic language is and show the importance of learning it. And fun facts about the Arabic language are that the reasons that you might think to consider learning the Arabic language is that over 280 million people in the world speak the Arabic language, and that would be very useful when if you like discovering countries, and if you like if you like communicating with people from different heritage, from different areas in the world. And there are really nice things about the language as well. Some of the things that cannot be expressed by other languages could work in the Arabic language as well. Like we have, like the Arabic language has 14 words that describes the word love in different formats and different levels. Something else, the Arabic language does not have capital letters. And one other thing is it has many letters that are not pronounced in any other languages. And if you try to practice enough to try to pronounce to train your tongue to pronounce such letters, it might be a cool thing to have, because that would help you even to learn more languages in the future. And that's it for my tutorial. Hope it was informative. Thank you so much.